Because of the quadratic formula, imaginary zeros come in pairs. Imaginary zeros come in pairs. So if a plus bi is a 0, then that means the conjugate a minus bi is a 0. So for example, if I say x is equal to 7 plus I, that means another solution is x equals 7 minus I. Both of them are going to be solutions. So if you have an imaginary 0, it comes in pairs. So let's look at this example. We're given a polynomial and they tell us that 2i is a 0. What does this also mean? Exactly. Negative 2i is also a 0. Because imaginary numbers always come in pairs. Imaginary solutions always come in pairs. Okay, so now that I know that 2i is a solution and negative 2i is a solution, we're going to use synthetic division to figure out the other solutions. So I'm going to put my coefficients in here. And we're going to do synthetic division. So first, I'm going to bring down the first coefficient, 1, and then we multiply. 1 times 2i is 2i. Now we're going to add. This will be negative 1 plus 2i. Now we're going to multiply again. Negative 1 times 2i is negative 2i. 2i times another 2i is plus 4i squared. Now, a rule that we have to remember is that I squared is negative 1. So guys, this can be negative 2i. This is a negative 1, so that becomes a minus 4. Okay, now let's continue with synthetic division, where we add 3 to negative 4 to get negative 1, and we still have this minus 2i. 3 plus a negative 4 is negative 1. You still have the negative 2i, so that goes there. You can't combine these two because they both have to have an I to combine it, so they stay separated. Okay, now we're going to multiply again. And I'm running out of some space here, so I'm going to scoot this over. I'm going to scoot these two numbers over. Minus 4, minus 4. Okay, so let's continue multiplying. I'm going to do negative 1 times 2i, that's negative 2i. Then I'm going to do negative 2i times 2i, that's negative 4i squared. Okay, so let's start simplifying. Remember, I squared is negative 1. So what will this become? A plus 4. Okay, this becomes a plus 4. Negative 4 plus 4 is 0. So I'm just left with negative 2i. I'm just left with this part. Those canceled out. Now we're going to multiply again. Negative 2i times 2i is negative 4i squared. I squared is negative 1. So what does this entire thing become? 4. And then we add, right? So negative 4 and 4, they cancel out. We do not have a remainder. That's because 2i is the solution. So let's do synthetic division again. Now we can just use these numbers right here. Okay? We went from a 4th degree. Now this is a 3rd degree. This is to the power of 3. This is power of 2. This is x, and that's your constant. Okay? So now we're going to use this polynomial. Okay, so let's try negative 2i this time. Bring down the 1, and we're going to multiply. 1 times negative 2i is negative 2i. Do you guys see what will cancel out when I add? 2i cancels out with negative 2i. What am I left with? Now we're going to multiply. Negative 1 times negative 2i is what? Positive 2i. Do you see what cancels? I'm left with negative 1. Negative 1 times negative 2i is a positive 2i. Those cancel. No remainder. Now I brought it down to a quadratic. This is my quadratic. X squared minus x minus 1. Okay, so let's see if we can do an eye chart. I need two numbers that multiply to negative 1 and add to negative 1. Can you do that? Nope, it doesn't work. So we're going to have to use the quadratic formula. We're going to have to do the quadratic formula. So A is equal to 1, B is equal to negative 1, and C is equal to negative 1. I pulled these coefficients to find A, B, and C. So the quadratic formula is x equals negative b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2a. Okay, so let's simplify this. This will become 1 plus or minus 4 times 1 and a negative 1. This becomes 5 all over 2. So this is your answer. So guys, listen. I have x equals 1 plus the square root of 5 over 2, and x equals 1 minus the square root of 5 over 2. That's two solutions right there. And then my other two solutions were right here. So that's 4 solutions total. So I'm going to write my solutions down. I got those. I also got 2i, well, plus or minus 2i. So those are my two solutions. I'm sorry, those are my 4 solutions. Okay, I'm going to give you guys another one. Right here, I'm going to let you try this one. So I'll give you a moment to try this on your own. Okay, the biggest thing that I need you to pick up from today is that if I give you this 0, because it's imaginary, you're also going to have the conjugate. This is also a 0. 2 minus I is also a 0. So you guys are doing synthetic division to find the other zeros that are missing. Oh, yeah. You can do either one first. All right, we're going to bring down the 1. So we multiply. 2 times 1 is 2. 1 times I is I. You combine the real parts. So negative 4 plus 2 is negative 2. The imaginary part stays by itself. Now let's multiply again. Negative 2 times 2 is negative 4. I times I is I squared. But what is I squared? So this becomes negative 4 minus 1, which is what? Negative 5. So 14 plus negative 5 is 9. Now let's multiply again. 9 times 2 is 18. 9 times I is 9i. And then we add. So negative 36 plus 18 is negative 18. And you have the plus 9i. Now this one will get a little bit messy, but stay with me. We're going to have to multiply. Let me just write it over here. 2 plus I, and we're going to multiply it by negative 18 plus 9i. We're multiplying this and this. This will become negative 36. This is plus 18i. This is minus 18i. And this is plus 9i squared. The middle cancels out. And remember, this is negative 1. So that means this is negative 36 minus 9, which is negative 45. So I'm going to put that right here, negative 45. And then we add, and we get no remainder. Okay, so now we're going to use these same numbers, and we're going to use 2 minus I this time. So guys, follow along. We're going to bring down the 1 and multiply. 1 times 2 is 2. 1 times I is negative I. Do you see what cancels? That cancels with that cancels with that. It's just 0. 0 times anything is just 0. So this is 9. 9 times 2 is 18. 9 times negative I is negative 9I. And those cancel. You just get 0. So here we are. We finally got it down to a quadratic. So this is x squared plus 9. This is the 0x term, but you don't really need that. Okay, so we have x squared plus 9. Solve it to get your new solutions. So I'm going to subtract 9 from both sides. You will get x squared equals negative 9. Then you square root both sides. And what's the square root of 9? It's 3. And what else do I need? An I, because there's a negative on the inside. So these are your other two answers. So guys, your solutions are 2 plus I, 2 minus I, 3I, and a negative 3I. Those are your 4 solutions for this 4th degree polynomial. Now let's talk about the factors. Okay, now talking about the factors, let me go back and give you a simpler example. Let's pretend my solution was x equals 5. What would the factor be? X minus 5, right? Okay, we're going to do the same thing for this. I'm going to do x minus, and then I put my answer in here. 2 plus I. Did you guys see what I did there? Okay, we're just going backwards. So if your solution was x equals 5, you just put x minus, and then you put your solution there. Okay, same thing here. X minus, and you just put your solution in there. So that's one of your factors. Let's do the next one. X minus, and I'm going to put my solution in there. So 2 minus I. And we're going to simplify this. Let's just do this one step at a time. My next one is 3I, so that would be x minus, and then my solution. And then here's the other one. It'll be x minus, and then I put my solution. But guys, what do 2 negatives make? A positive. So this will just be a positive. Okay, so those are my 4 factors. I'm going to simplify this a little bit further. Please look. I can distribute this minus. So this will be x minus 2 plus I. That's the simplified version of that factor. We're going to distribute this one. This will be minus 2 plus I. So these are my factors. I'll circle them for you. Oh, I'm sorry. This is negative 2, and then this is negative positive. That should be a minus. Sorry, thank you. Okay, is that okay with everyone? Okay, great. So those are my 4 factors. I distributed this to get negative 2 or minus 2, distributed to get a minus I. Here we distributed the minus to get a minus 2, distribute this negative to negative I, and you get a positive I. So those are my 4 factors. Okay, let me give you a challenge, guys. Do this problem on your paper. Okay, look, I want the polynomial. Work backwards. I gave you the answers. So look at this previous example. These were your answers. You can go backwards to give me the factors. Go backwards again to give me the polynomial. Try. Okay, really quick. What is the factor for x equals 3? X minus 3. And guys, if I know this is a solution, what else is a solution? Minus 4i. Okay? Remember, imaginary solutions come in pairs. So let's go back and write the factors. What's the first factor for this one? Minus 4i. And what's the factor for the next one? X plus 4i. Now just multiply it out. Okay, I'll show you. Plus 4ix minus 4ix minus 16i squared. You see the middle cancels? So you don't have to worry about the I and the X anymore. This is X squared. What does this become since this is -1? Plus 16. Okay, now you're going to multiply by X minus 3. So this is the polynomial whose roots are 3, 4i, and -4i. Okay, so the factor for this one is x minus 5. The factor for this would be x minus 3. Let's put this in parentheses, plus 2i. And you also have to do the conjugate. That'll be x minus 3 minus 2i. Because remember, the other solution is 3 minus 2i. And then we can simplify this. So this is x minus 3 minus 2i. And this one is x minus 3 plus 2i. So let's go ahead and multiply. X times x is x squared minus 3x plus 2ix. Minus 3x plus 9 minus 6i. Minus 2ix plus 6i minus 4i squared. These cancel. These cancel. So I am left with x squared minus 6x. That's these two together. And then 9, this will become a -1. So this will become 13 because 9 plus 4 is 13. So now we're going to multiply these with x minus 5. So this will become x cubed minus 6x squared plus 13x. This will be minus 5x squared plus 30x. What's 13 times 5? 65? Okay, now we're going to combine like terms. So this and this is a -11x squared. This and this is positive 43x plus 65. Oh, real quick. -5 times positive 13. This should be a negative. This will be a -65. So let's fix that. There we go. And then add 30 plus 13, it's 43. -6x squared minus 65. Yep. Okay, so this is your answer right down here.